and I write about people, and I love writing about people. So that's pretty much the spectrum.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the eighth episode of Pepper Spotlight podcast. My name is Pawan Rochwani, and I'm the host of this show. I also lead the community events and partnership initiatives at Pepper Content. Before we get on to this conversation and to this episode, I want to start this with a question. Do you all know what's the difference between Gen Z, Gen X, Boomer, Millennial, or what are the actual age uh, ranges of these terms? I think I was somebody who did not know that I fall into the millennial category. I thought millennial is someone who just uses slangs on the internet and is like too young in school, college, high school, whatever. Basically, people who still use Snapchat. I thought that is what is called as millennial, but let's just come to the technical definitions and ranges of all these terms in this conversation today, because we are talking to someone who very frequently writes about these age groups and also in general about the content space and about the creator economy. I think Shefali Bhatt is one writer, journalist that I really look forward to whenever I want to read something about what's happening in the content space and the creator space across the globe, not just in India, but across the globe. And in this conversation, we are speaking to her about everything as to how she started her career in journalism, how does she go about what stories to approach, what titles to talk about, who should be the creators that she should interview, and in general about what she thinks about the creator economy and the content space of India and the globe. This conversation was pre-recorded with her, so you will listen to my conversation with her over a Zoom call from here on. Thank you so much, Shefali, for giving us your time for this conversation today. I think we are very thrilled to have you on Pepper Spotlight, and just want to welcome you on the show first of all.
Thanks, Pawan. I'm thrilled to be here.
To start with, the very first question, and I think this anybody we have on the show, entrepreneurs or creators or even folks from the media industry, I really want to ask them first as to how did they, land up into doing what they are doing currently, because everyone has such a great and inspiring story that's sometimes a lot of useful for all the listeners of this show and everyone who's connected to the Pepper content team. So why don't we start with how did you end up writing such great stories?
How did I end up becoming a journalist, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think I was in seventh or eighth standard, and I was sitting at a neighbor's house. This uncle who I was telling that I'd probably become a teacher, and I'd become an ideal teacher because there used to be a lot of partiality in our school. So that used to be the thing. And but I told him what are the things that I like doing, and then he said, "Journalist ban jao fir." So then I said, "So what is a journalist?" So I think that's how it started. It was seeded in my head back when I was in school. And then in second year college, I remember I was reading Cosmos, and there was this one line there which I've now shared with so many people, but that's actually how this began. There was this line to the effect of somewhere something incredible is waiting to be explored. And I remember my first thought after reading that line was, how cool would it be to become the medium that explores the incredible and then shares it with the rest of the world? Because you cannot expect everybody to to get their hands on some that incredible that is there out there, right? So I think that was kind of what led me towards pursuing journalism.
And where did you study from? What was your first, organization, or did you start it as freelancing? How was
Yeah,
that
so I
professional
wrote
path?
for Times of India and Hindustan Times back in my hometown for about a year and a half, and it wasn't easy convincing my family to let me to pursue journalism. But I guess that freelancing bit kind of helped. And then after that, they, once I remember they'd seen my byline there, and there was a smile, and that's when I knew, okay, now it's going to be easy. After that, I did study journalism. I actually studied broadcast journalism and then realized broadcast was not for me. And then moved to print and have been with print and now online medium since then.
So what year were you freelancing in, if I can ask that? Like
It's there
what
on
year?
LinkedIn also. uh, I think 2009 to 11ish, around that time. Yeah.
Wow. I
I'm
mean,
old. I've been doing this
no,
for a decade.
no, no. I'm just trying to think with the perspective as to, how, I mean, if you want to answer that and tell us, how right now currently the, freelance situation is compared to back then in 2009, 2010 when you were freelancing. Do you want to,
Oh, so I was doing it just for fun. I was doing it for somebody who was already writing for these papers, and they paid me like like a bakshish once, and I got like a 1,000 rupee note in an envelope, and I was thrilled about it. But I was just doing local stories, and it wasn't really as big a deal. I was just doing it because I was really excited that I was getting to write for these papers. So it's nothing. I haven't done freelancing since then. So I wouldn't know, but I know it's really hard these days, especially getting pre pandemic, getting people to pay, I think, was the hardest. Now while we're in the pandemic, I think just doing freelancing and getting paid for journalism is really hard because
yeah,
uh, you know journalism business model at least is going through an existential crisis of sort.
yeah,
So I guess it's very different now.
yeah, yeah. Um, I'm gonna ask and tell you like a fun story that recently happened while we were
Huh.
speaking to someone at our office, and we had recently come across this thing where Ranveer and Tanmay Bhatt had invested into few organizations, and we're just wondering, wow, this is something like a great thing that's happening in the creator ecosystem. And the very next day is, I think I read the article that was written by you, and I was just so happy to read that because I felt that somebody is covering uh, the
Somebody
unique
read your
stories.
mind.
Yeah, exactly. And it was like the very next day.
Wow,
I want
yeah.
to ask you, how do you pick and choose what stories do you want to cover, or what topics do you want to write about? Is it something that naturally just you thought comes and you want to write about this, or there's a process to it, or there's some analytics to it? How do you do that?
I wish there were a process, Pavan. It would make my life a lot easier if there were a process. There isn't any. Like, for instance, this influencers turning investors story, right? So I know that, so I follow a lot of people across the world, right? I have a list where I'll follow people from Nigeria, from Singapore, from Taiwan, from Poland, obviously from the States, and it just I'm also fascinated by what's happening on the internet around the world. So I remember seeing some tweets about TikTokers becoming investors in the state, and I had been sort of eyeing that story for a while. I was waiting for that trend to sort of come in India as well. So the moment I saw this was happening here, I just pinged these people and I said I have to write about this because it's interesting how what this means for the creator economy. Because like I keep talking to people about it, creator economy has evolved a lot. The techies are interested in it now, which is great. Pepper content is one example of that, but it's still in the world that it has operated in, which is the branding and the advertising world. For now, it has been fighting for respect more than anything else so far. And I think with some people turning investors and others sort of looking at it and seeing this is what's happening with people who have sort of risen from our world, I think I think that makes a lot of difference to that sector, and what it means to others who may be looking to becoming uh, financially savvier. So I'm really glad that that story happened, and the kind of reactions that I got to it only shows that a lot of other people were also just as excited when they got to know about it.
Yeah, and I think it also puts limelight on creators, that creators can also be, let's say, I mean, we already consider creators as entrepreneurs also, but now they
Yeah.
can be looked upon as, let's say, investors as
It's
well. And
just
I
going
think
higher up, right? You're moving up the
exactly.
value chain.
Yeah, and that also sort of puts the limelight on the whole growing ecosystem as well. That
Yeah.
it's not just, let's say,
Yeah,
they're
it's like
not
it's
just
just a. I mean, these are just hints that the economy, that the creator economy is trying to drop at these people, whoever these people are, the non-creator economy people, to take us seriously. That's what
yeah,
the creators are
yeah,
saying
yeah.
by these little things that they are doing.
Yeah, and I think that's a brilliant trend that we are seeing in India currently. Something that you were answering during this question, and I think I want to know this: how do you stay up? You already said that you follow different people from across the globe to see what trends are happening across the world. But I sometimes miss out on checking on Twitter or, let's say, the news in general. Let's say one week is going really hectic, so you miss out on the Twitter and the entire
Yeah.
action that's going out there in the world. How do you stay updated with so many things across the globe? Is I think this should have a secret mantra that you can share with everyone, because keeping eye on all the trends across the world is actually difficult for me at least.
People are going to be so disappointed by this answer, Pawan. I actually do not stay updated. I can share screenshots with you later after this conversation where somebody has said something and I've said, "What is this?" or "Who is this?" And they'd be like, it surprises me for somebody who writes about internet culture how completely clueless you are as to what's happening on the internet. But I think that's what works for me, right? Which is that I'm clueless. So every time someone says something, my antennas are always up. So I'm like, what is this? Or what's happening there? So I think that's it's always conversations. There have been times, of course, when I've looked at a reel or a tweet or last year TikToks,
Hmm.
and that's sort of given me ideas. But I think it's these serendipitous conversations where you're not looking for ideas is where you get most of your ideas from. Because as
Yeah.
a journalist, you're never able to sort of switch off. And so even if you're not thinking in terms of story ideas or
Hmm.
actively looking for them, they just come to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is really the secret mantra, which is rely on your antennas and serendipity.
um, what do you think are some of, let's say, topics or trends, or let's say just in general, maybe ideas also that are not really given a lot of attention currently in India? Because I think this was something that was happening, right? Tanmay Bhatt invested quite a while ago, I think.
Yeah, he
Uh,
invested in small case last year, September, October last year.
yeah, and I think
And I had
recently,
missed it that time.
and again in Kuhu he recently invested, I
Yes.
think, one more.
Yeah, that happened
So
just a day before I wrote the story.
yeah, so I think this was something maybe that we missed out on few months back. What are some topics or ideas or trends that we are not giving attention to currently?
So I think there is an inordinate amount of, actually not inordinate. I think there is a lot of focus on bringing out stories of the young, and that makes complete sense because that's the future, right? So you need to see how that's going to kind of shaping up the future. What I personally feel we don't write enough about are the boomers, or the Gen X, the boomers, the silent generation. So people whose stories we should be writing about now, because after a while they will not be there to tell their stories. So which is why I actually make a conscious effort to write stories about boomers also, be it about how streaming players have kind of changed their binge watching habits, and what are the kind of changes that has brought into their lives, how the 50 plus are using Instagram at this point, uh, how they've become digitally more independent, or transformed digitally during the pandemic because they had to do a lot of things online as opposed to offline. uh, I am I'm particularly invested in the generations that marketers usually, or people in general think are not cool generations. I mean, I obviously care about millennials because I represent them, and I'm a part of that generation and that cohort, and I am forever in awe of the Gen Z, because there is just so much to learn from them. But I think I have a soft corner for the Gen Xers and the boomers, because I feel that somebody's got to write their stories. So that's definitely one. I think the second one is all beats at the intersection of mental health. So there is, technology coinciding with mental health, corporate culture coinciding with mental health. I think, I mean, there are individuals who are doing a great job of it. There's Tanmay Goswami, who runs a newsletter called Sanity, and that also covers like a lot of global issues as well. Uh, but other than that, I mean, I don't see, and I've had these conversations internally with some reporters at ET, where we have kind of thought about why is mental health not a separate beat, and I think it should be at this point. That would be second. And third, I think in general, a lot of people are not able to do stories at the intersection of human interest and culture, because at least in India there is not that big a trend of, say, stories about what an Atlantic or a New Yorker would have pieces on, probably what the way you how I'm just guessing right now, the way you save your contacts, and what that says about you, and how that habit sort of reflects on a person, or the kind of emojis that you use. I mean, that is something that always fascinates me, because
Yeah.
some people do take the pains to actually change the color of the emoji that they are using, and I think that's fascinating. I don't know why we don't write about these things enough. uh, what in what way do you put your DP? Like, I know there was this one time when some of my friends could not see my WhatsApp DP, and they thought I maybe have had a fight with my husband, which I thought was very random. But they told me that because it's a thing, like people when they go through a breakup or something, they remove their WhatsApp DP. It seems. It's like, wow. So I mean, I don't know why we don't talk about these things or write about these things enough, because these are such intriguing and yet such uh, relatable human trends that coincide with the way, or that show how we use technology to tell the world the kind of person that we are. I really wish we would write about these things a lot more.
I think if you write about it, I am definitely going to read about it because
Let me
yeah,
pitch
these
it. Let it.
these
Next
things
thing I'm going to do
definitely.
is pitch this to my editor.
Exactly, because I very carefully, also use my emojis, or, let's just say grammatically also putting it into, properly into 280 characters on a tweet or something, and all of those sort of things. So I mean, I definitely, make it like a habit to have these like strict guidelines for my online chatting, or, emailing also in general. But people
Uh,
just randomly.
but I just read this earlier today, that Gen Z is not into emojis, and apparently that's a
Oh.
millennial thing.
Oh, that's
Which, yeah,
nice.
which in itself is fascinating, right?
Yeah. I think what I was saying was, I even for my certain, let's say, norms, I would call, I when I message someone, I, on WhatsApp also, write it in one message altogether. Not like, hey, and then one
It's
more
a good
line, and
etiquette.
then one more another line, and things like that. So I
Yeah.
think those are like small principles and norms that I use for like online activities. Um, Something very interesting that just popped to my head is, and I was thinking about, maybe why we are not writing about these pieces. Maybe because people might not be fully interested into reading it, and again bringing that existential crisis of the whole media industry altogether, and it just coincides into the creative angle and also the business angle to it. But what I've noticed in the past few years is, and let me start by from the current time, I think I get my news a lot from memes or podcasts, or let's say somebody keeps sharing about farmers' protests or about any other topic also in general, or Instagram stories or on Twitter or things like that. I got to know today that India won the third or fourth test, and we are now in the final and all of those things through Twitter itself, not through a news app or something like that.
I know everything about WandaVision through Twitter. I haven't seen one episode.
So I mean, exactly. So I see, the way we consume also news, or let's say in general trends, has also changed. But
Yeah.
you being into this space since, let's say, years, How have you seen it evolving from 2010 or 15 and now in 2021? What are the major trends that you have seen in journalism?
So, Pawan, I think the medium, the channel, the platform of dissemination has evolved a lot. That has changed, but news is still news. Features are still features. Think pieces are still think pieces. So I don't think the heart has changed. It's it's the body that has kind of evolved and become like different people over the years. I can only speak about years because I haven't seen journalism through the decades, right? I'm just a decade old here. And I think even going forward, that's going to be the case. You will see people thinking of newer ways to monetize journalism so that they are able to do journalism and that they're not they don't have to entirely depend on advertising. So you see traditional media also sort of putting stories behind a paywall because the future is that you have to sort of build your community, like how Legion, the tech investor who coined the term passion economy, how she says, right, you build
Yeah,
your 100 true fans. So
yeah,
I think you build a community of 100 readers who care about news,
yeah,
and there'll be some people who will be doing that, and then there'll be some people who will create a community of 1,000 people or 10,000 and 100,000 and so on and so forth, and these will be paying members of that community. So I guess that will change. Like you mentioned, memes and videos, right? So the way news is disseminated will change. I I'm fascinated by the way memes have emerged as one of the sources of news of late. I also I've recently followed like this one financial memes page on Twitter, and I follow a lot of meme pages on Instagram as well to stay updated. But then, one of the dangers of memes is also that if it's fake news, it's also harder to track because images don't have your text to
yeah,
sort of track them, and which just makes it even harder for you to check fake news.
yeah,
And therefore I think one has to be careful and sort of double check, triple check everything that you receive which is not coming from a kosher source of news, but which
yeah,
is coming in the form of an image or a video.
yeah. I think, and thank you for answering that, because that's something that I've been constantly thinking about as to how the next few years might look like. And
Hmm.
also this answer just puts like a seeding ground for my next question, which is about fake news. Um, how do you, whenever you're approaching a piece, right, how do you make sure the information that you're getting from the sources, or let's say from where you're reading it, because there's so much noise on the internet, and also in that noise there is fake news. So how do you as a writer make sure that everything is like 100% factually correct, and whatever you're writing, because it's also like a responsibility, and it's going into a major publication,
Yeah.
and then a lot of readers are going to read this. So how do you be 100% sure about being factually correct?
So, like I said, Pavan, you double check, you triple check, you ask different uh, reliable and credible sources of information, and different bodies that are credible bodies that may likely have that kind of information. And you also ensure that you're talking to different kinds of people, right, and not a particular kind of category of people. And then you just hope and pray that you've not been sort of at the receiving end of like a grand scam, which we have seen some people sort of go through, and it is just scary. So I think you just try your levelest best, man, to do right by your story, and to make sure that you get all the facts right.
Yeah, yeah. um and while you were also answering about Legion and the passion economy and 100 true fans and everything else about it, we have a very strong network of freelance writers at Pepper.
Yeah.
um, and I mean, this question is sort of like from all of them to you, as to how uh, one can maintain, let's say, like a strong online portfolio profile? It can be on LinkedIn, Twitter, however, maybe more like building your personal brand altogether as a writer, as a journalist. How can, one be on that part to, having like a strong online presence?
Pawan, this is not the first time somebody has asked this question of me. And again, I really wish I had a great answer, because then I would have turned it into a course, charged people money to enroll for that. But I'll just tell you how it's been for me, right? So I
Yeah.
think Facebook, like it was for everybody else, it was a personal account for me and for memories. And now it's obviously just like for everybody else. Even for me, it's my birthday calendar. Uh, I I went on Twitter because I used to think that someday I will lose my memory, and then Twitter would become that platform which would tell me what kind of a person I was. So I would make sure to only put out happy updates
Hmm.
back then when it was 140 characters.
Hmm.
And yeah, so that's how it started for me. I 2 years ago I was chosen one of the LinkedIn top voices of
Yeah.
2019. And again, this is something that I've said before. I didn't even have LinkedIn as an app on my phone at the time. I used to just go and share my stories every week, and then go the next week to see the kind of feedback it's had, respond to those people. It's only very recently that I became regular. I think what has worked for me very unintentionally is just being sincere, and not trying to do something, not trying to project something. But I think over the years, one thing that I have done, which now I look at as work, is sharing my work. Because I used to be very old school about this, that let people discover my stories and read them on their own. So if only somebody else would tweet the story, would I just thank them? I wouldn't even retweet. I used to be such a purist. And uh, even I remember there was this one time I had written an editorial, and I was really excited about it. This was some 7 8 years ago. So that is something that I did share on Facebook. And somebody commented on that, saying, somebody who's not from India, they commented on that saying, I'm so proud of you, so nice to see this. And I'm like, hello, I write 3 stories every week. So like, this is not the first time in my life that I'm writing. And then she went, oh really, I had no clue. And I think that made me realize that you need to share your work. And it's also, now you know that it's also about distribution, right?
Yeah.
It's also, and over the years I just realized it also shows how much you respect your stories.
Yeah.
Like, I'm somebody who would, I won't do a story if I don't care about it. So if I
Hmm.
care about the story, then it's my responsibility to make sure that it reaches as many people as it can.
Yeah.
And for that, it is very important for you to share your work. So I think if there are
Yeah.
two things that I would suggest, if I am even qualified to suggest, I'd be like, share your work, and share it with sincerity. So it should,
Yeah.
your motive and your intention should be sincere. And
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, once you're consistent with that, automatically it just builds up, right? I mean, you constantly
yeah,
keep
I think
sharing.
that ideally that is what happened. Otherwise, I mean, I wouldn't, because I don't have any targets. Like, I speak to a lot of these people, and it just really, I admire people who have these targets. Okay, I have to get these many, at least I have to get these many followers by this time. And these many likes would sort of signify this or that. I am just always surprised by every reaction that I get. I'm like, oh wow, this works. Okay.
Hmm.
So I'm
Yeah.
still in that mode right now, where I'm just like whatever comes my way, I'm just grateful for that.
Yeah. This brings me to my last question before we move into like a fun sort of lightning round, but not like the lightning round of Karan Johar types, like decent wala lightning round. And the last question is about, because you have covered such diverse stories, right? What is something that you personally like to write about? Any such particular genre, or about, let's say, just about a particular segment of the ecosystem, or something like that, that you might really just want to pursue and write?
So Pawan, I think if I were to sort of sum it up, I am, uh, I'm chronicling the way internet is changing how we live our lives, and how the way we live our lives is making internet companies bring about changes to themselves. And I think that's the spectrum. I enjoy writing stories where I can, talk about them to my friends who belong to the Gen Z cohort, and they
Mm-hmm.
know exactly what I'm talking about, and they have like some sort of a completely different take to that, like just this emoji thing, which I
Mm-hmm.
discovered, where we put in so much thought into it, whereas for them it's just whatever. So, and it should also be something that I can tell my mother, who's now 60 plus, so I can tell her that this is what I'm working on. I write about life, and I love writing about life, and I write about people, and I love writing about people. So that's pretty much the spectrum.
That's super, and I think I'm gonna. I mean, I've already read a lot of your articles that you have written, and but I'm really looking forward for everything that you're going to write next. I think it really strongly connects, especially to me, and because I just figured out I'm of the millennial age. So especially to the millennial side of folks. So definitely, looking forward to all
Oh,
the articles that you're going to write next. Um,
thanks, man.
let me come to this fun quick lightning round, and just oops, yep, so sorry, I think I just lost my internet over there, but what I
No
was saying
worries.
is, let me come to this quick lightning round, and it's like something that don't think too much about it. Whatever first comes to your head, just go ahead and answer that. Okay,
Okay.
are we set for that? Should we start?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Would you rather read political editorials or read about, let's say, sports?
Uh,
You can even answer, I won't read both of
on a
them.
daily
So,
basis, no. On a daily basis, I'd prefer political editorials. But if it's been, something worthwhile, something landmark-ish, then something about sport. Yeah.
okay. Would you rather read a newspaper or read the news on the internet?
Depends on the time of the day. Early in the morning, first thing in the morning, newspaper, and after that, for the rest of the day, on my phone.
Okay. Would you rather be recognized? Oh, okay. This is something that, very randomly just popped up in our head. Would you rather be recognized wherever you go or live like a quiet life of anonymity?
I'd rather be recognized in a press conference setup, like where
Mhm.
I'm supposed to be recognized. I hope people do recognize me there. So,
Okay,
and
so
other
I mean,
than that, yeah.
in professional sense, yes, but not like a Shah Rukh Khan types or
Yeah, in my
Salman Khan.
personal life, no. I mean, I know that they have great lives and everything, but for some reason, and I say this to my friends all the time. I don't know why they're not able to understand it. I don't want that life. I don't know how they deal with it, but uh, I cherish my personal life and the privacy that comes with it. I don't want that ever.
Got it. Would you rather publish one insanely great selling book and never write again, or publish like a sting of 15 average selling books over a period of 20 years?
I would write a great story every week and then hope for, I don't know, Random House or somebody to kind of commission a compilation of that as a book.
That's super. That's a super thing. Rank these social media platforms according to your likeness towards them: Twitter, Reddit, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn.
I don't like any social media platform, okay? With the
You are
way
LinkedIn
platforms have
top
become,
voice
maybe.
2019.
Look,
People
every
like
platform
really
has a
really
lot of.
crave for that. People really crave for that. That I
Yeah, I
want to
still
be
don't get
recognized.
it. Yeah, no. Every platform has a lot of garbage. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. I can tell you. Uh, I can tell you which are the platforms that I consume the most, and in that order,
Huh.
I can tell you. In terms
Okay.
of preference, so that
Hmm.
would definitely be Twitter,
Hmm.
and second would be LinkedIn for sure.
Hmm.
Um, and LinkedIn is also a far more involved audience, so it's
Hmm.
it's very rewarding that way. After that, it's just everybody is on the same page. Yeah, it's Twitter, LinkedIn. After that, whoever whenever the notification pops and whenever I get the time to see it, it's that. Honestly, it's Twitter and LinkedIn. Yeah.
Got it. If you get to live a day working in a different profession than you are in the current one, what profession would that be?
I don't know, and I'm really scared for this. I really like what I do. I really like my profession. I don't know what are the because this is like a known evil, right? Like I know this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, what if I say something and then I realize, oh my God, this is such a horrible life. I don't want any other professional's life. I just want mine.
Okay. Three books that you would recommend to our audience.
That's see, that's always a tough one because you don't know, what kind of books people like. So I can just tell you the books that mean a lot to me.
Hmm.
I think during the pandemic, I have only read, your those very advanced self-help books. So all your,
Hmm.
novels and Rolf Dobelli's and those kind of books. I will not recommend those, even though they are great reads.
Hmm.
But I think it would be books for the heart and not for the mind that I would want to recommend to people.
Hmm.
First one definitely is Rasidi Ticket, which is Amrita Pritam's autobiography. I mean, one of the kind of epistolary autobiographies that she's written. I read it in Hindi last year, and it was a great experience because I realized how much time it sort of takes for one to read Hindi, even though Hindi is my first language, because we've just so moved far beyond that. So that was a treat in itself. But the book is available in English, and obviously it's written in Punjabi, so there's that. So people should get the translated versions and definitely read that book. It's a most wholesome book you would read, especially women. And I think if I were to recommend a book for somebody who is a journalist or aspiring journalist, I would say Good Girls Revolt, which is about a bunch of women journalists from the 1950s and 60s in the US who worked at this magazine called Newsweek, and then they sued the publication for their rights because they were doing almost all the work on the stories but not getting a byline. And so for their rights,
Hmm.
they kind of sued the publication. And uh, Amazon Prime has made a series on it as well, but the book is obviously far better and also far more detailed, and also the real story. So would definitely recommend that. The third one is always tough because you're always thinking, okay, this is the last chance. I have to like give you like the best thing that is going
Yeah.
to change your life. And I don't have that. I don't know anyone who has the answer to that one last thing that you have the option to change somebody's life. So I would just go with a safer option, which is go with the book that actually changed my life, which is another autobiography. It's called Left to Tell. It's written by a Rwandan genocide survivor called Immaculate. I'm not sure about the surname, so I don't want to mispronounce it, so I will not say it. But it's available on Amazon, and I read this book when I was in college, and I think it became that the book that changes you.
Hmm.
And I think if you think about how my life has also kind of panned out after that, it kind of like the title does justice to it because she was kind of left to tell her story, and
Hmm.
that is what I do for a living, which is I tell people's stories. So yes, those are the three books.
Got it. And last question, and I'm not going to ask you three tips for our writers. Instead, I'm going to ask you, what are three things that our writers should not do? I mean, it's one and the
uh,
same as a
this
question,
reminds
but
me of the time I used to ask these kind of questions to people. Which is just like, I'm not asking you what to do, tell me what are the things you should not do.
it's one and the same,
So yes,
actually,
totally
to be
relatable.
frank. Yeah.
Totally, the karma is coming at me now.
Hmm.
So don't assume, uh, never assume. um, don't don't value your uh, don't be dishonest to your story. I'd say, because you have a responsibility towards your story.
Mhm.
So don't don't be dishonest towards your story, and don't value your story. over humans, because you are telling somebody's story, so that somebody is about your story, even and this can be controversial, obviously, so conditions applied. But just I mean, there have been times when, I've reached out to people for comments, and then they've said that, is this like, what is the kind of story this is going to be? And I have told them so, and they said that, I'd much rather not participate, and that's fine. I think, you've got to respect that, and I will find somebody else, to talk about an issue or a subject that I'm working on. But I would not, I mean, that's not my style to necessarily put people beneath the story. I would put people above it. But then it's controversial because you also have to be honest with your story. Yeah. So you have to kind of, decide sort of how do you do justice to both. Yeah. So I think it depends on the story that you're writing. There are times when you're calling out people for problematic behavior, or organizations or institutions for problematic behavior, and then you have to be objective and you have to do your job.
Yeah.
But then there are also times when you've you have that option to sort of put people above your story's interests. Yeah. And you got to sort of take that call and remember that you're a human first and a journalist second.
Wow, that's like a nice end to the whole conversation, and I just want to say thank you once again for giving us your time and sharing all these great insights, and also sharing your story, and just in general what you think about the whole ecosystem as well. So thank you so much for giving us your time, Shefali.
Thanks, Pawan. I hope at least some of it would be of use to people who
I think who would care to listen to this. I mean, this is being like you are LinkedIn top voice 2019. People already know you.
Someday I will understand how that happened. But I'm glad it happened, because it's only after it happened that I realized that it means a lot.
It does mean a lot. Yeah. So that's great. But thank you once again for giving us your time. I think not just few people, a lot of people are going to be inspired by this conversation, and hopefully reach out to you with more questions directly on your Twitter handle and ask you about how to do this.
Absolutely love to. I mean, questions also make you learn so much about your own process and how you think about things, right? So it's always good.
Yeah.
I mean, we are in the business of asking questions. I think the least we can do is be ready to answer some of them ourselves.
Yeah. Great, super. I think this is going to be a great listen for everyone who has been checking out Pepper Spotlight always. Once again, thank you so much for giving us your time.
Thanks, Pawan. All right.
I hope you all enjoyed this conversation with Shefali. If you have any questions, please feel free to tweet us or DM us on Instagram, or just put down, if you're watching this on YouTube, just put it in the comment section and we'll make sure that we address your questions. Pepper Spotlight is a weekly podcast show. We release new episodes every Wednesday, and it releases on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Hubhopper, Gaana, JioSaavn, whichever podcast app that you use, or even on YouTube. If you are someone who's watching podcasts on YouTube, I think I thoroughly enjoy watching podcasts on YouTube. I need that video. I mean, just like that. We also release blogs with all these episodes. So if you're someone who wants to read summary of these episodes, please just go to the Pepper Content website, and we'll mention the link to the website also in the description of this episode, so you can even read about these episodes and summary about it and some top highlights from the conversation. To give you all a hint about who the next guest on the show is going to be, is this person is someone who has been an entrepreneur and is now as an investor eye to himself, and he's looking out for entrepreneurs and organizations who are going to make it big in the next few years. Surprisingly, and coincidentally, one of the guests that we have interviewed in the past few episodes on Pepper Spotlight, this investment firm has them under their portfolio. So just connect some dots and figure out who the next guest on Pepper Spotlight is going to be. My name is Pawan Rochwani, and thank you so much for listening to this conversation, or if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you so much. We'll see you again on next Wednesday.